And they rescheduled it, but this night, I said, I'm sorry, Legier, but I can't go. And then they have bad weather, so they put it off into a.
Absolutely. May work out just fine.
Oh,
after all. Be bad if you made the decision to go there and then you got bad weather.
Well, I could, and I'll tell you what. I told my wife on that last 11 years, she said, we're going on vacation. I gotta go. And they turn around and
To do that, oh, you'd be, yeah.
the book of deeds
Yeah.
would have an entry. Okay.
It's too nice a day. But it's just a work session.
Yeah, the more will come. Bob, can you hear us?
Loud and clear, Mayor.
Thank you. Glad you're with us.
I like the new setting. Looks good.
It could be, yeah. There he is.
Hey.
I'm so glad to see you, Commissioner Dotson. It's my pleasure to be here, Mr. Mayor. You're a very faithful commissioner.
You just pulling it down?
No, I've been here about 4 hours.
Oh, okay.
How many days did you get to spend time with your granddaughter? Or the new grandchild? She was born Sunday night about 2. I don't know, what day is it? It's Thursday, I think. Wonderful. I hope so. Well, let me now call the meeting of the Highlands Board of Commissioners, our workshop meeting, to order. And the first item will be to review and approve the agenda. Do we have any changes to the proposed agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Second, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you. We have an agenda, and now the next item would be to approve the January 18th workshop meetings. Do we have any corrections, clarifications to those minutes?
Move to be approved.
Okay, second. All in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next one would be the approval of the February the 15th work session meeting minutes. Do we have any clarifications or changes to those minutes? All right,
Second.
second. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand, saying aye. Thank you very much. Now, the next item is the follow-up items. So let's just, we'll have a discussion. Appointment policy amendment for the planning and zoning boards. Mr. Mathis, would you like to lead us off with our discussion?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. In your packet, you will have the first page, which is the policy on appointments to boards and committees. It's the current policy that we have. The next page is a rough draft of some things we had talked about changing. First of that was therefore a minimum of 5 members of the planning board shall reside within the corporate limits of the town. 2 members of the planning board may live outside the corporate limits, but must reside within the Highlands Township and on property or business within the corporate limits. The same as with the zoning board, those changes. And also you'll see an additional change on that first draft about members of the planning and zoning boards being appointed on an annual basis by the Board of Commissioners. The second draft is identical with those changes, except the only difference is at the bottom where members of the planning and zoning board shall serve 3-year terms. So the big difference between the 2 drafts are, of course, an annual appointment and 3-year appointment. That's about all I got.
Got a question. This proposal concurs with our town charter also? Or is there anything in the charter that would be contrary to this?
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that. I do know that if we do change this about the annual or 3-year appointment, the Unified Development Ordinance will have to be updated, and I could talk with Bob. We may just pull that section out of it and have it in the policy alone if we're able to do
Okay.
that.
And I have only one other question. On the planning board, we have own property. If you live in the township, we say you have to own property and or a business in the corporate limits. Would that preclude some people that live in the township that's very active in the community from being unqualified to serve on that board? And what do y'all think about that? Because I think in the past, we might have had some planning board people that did not necessarily own a business or property.
So the way this is written, it would preclude those, but that was at the direction from our last meeting.
Uh-huh.
And I believe it kind of mirrors what we have required in the past with the zoning board. The biggest change that we brought originally was adding that about the township in there to keep people from outside of the Highlands Township applying. As we'd seen on one of the last appointments for planning board, we actually had someone, I think it was in Cullowhee, that was trying to get on the planning board. So I think at a minimum, we need to keep the township section in there.
I mean, I lean towards the 3-year. I mean, we talked about it last time, the continuity of 1-year appointments can be rough at some point. You realize, plus finding brand new people, even if people want to continue or not continue, at least a 3-year commitment. I just in staggered terms, but that doesn't actually have to be policy, I guess.
Well,
Yes, it can. But
I was appointed to the planning board in 2003. There were 3-year terms, and there were term limits, I think, of 2 consecutive terms. So I served from then to 2009. So that, I think, is the way it used to be set up. I'm not advocating that we have term limits, especially with the zoning board where, you know, that type of training and understanding on the zoning board needs to be, you know, preserved.
and the zoning board never changed from 3 years. The planning boards would have changed to 1 year at one point. I just recommend they both stay with 3. But
Right.
Okay with the rest of it.
What are your thoughts?
We're trying to figure out why we changed it to 1 here on the planning board. Do we remember? I mean, you would remember, but Buzz and I were here. Eric might have been here.
I think it was just involved in actually portion.
People that were showing up at some meetings and then missing 3 or 4, and we need to add the.
I mean, you have in here, we have missing 3 consecutive meetings.
Yeah, we
they make
take
one,
care of the
they
problem.
take 2, and then make one for stuff, and we were just like, you gotta be on it, you need to.
Commit to it.
We need to commit to it and stuff, so that's why we kind of went to the 1 that we would.
That allowed us to get rid of the ones that would be in the
honestly,
problems.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not that they weren't being bad members, they just weren't being proactive and being
Consistent.
consistent with getting the meetings and showing up and stuff. And at that time, there was a lot more going on and stuff. So we there.
Maybe when we were doing the whole UDO.
Yeah. I think
And so they had
sometimes,
meeting
yeah,
after
there was-
meeting
Yeah,
after meeting.
it was, but, and that's why we went to the 1 years, not so that we were, it's like, we're just like, it's just kind of an oversight that, you know, if you're there meeting after meeting, stuff, we did, you can serve 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, whatever, just looking at you year by year, you're there participating and being.
And we just put
member,
you back on.
we just put you right back on. So. That's where that came from. Like,
I think that's a bad idea.
I think that's why we did it, though. I think
The-
Eric's right, is that we were having some that would, you know, had served a year and had 2 more years to go, and yet would
They
not
were, like,
consistently be,
not at meetings and stuff.
you know, participating. And,
The challenge is every year, and Josh, you can weigh in on this, and Michael, we have to contact a member around December, say, are you still interested in serving? And then develop a slate of candidates for
Yeah.
confirmation.
And if there are, they'll reply.
Yeah.
It's,
And then they have the option to resign at any given point. So
I'd rather still stick with 3 years and then come up with some way that those people can be addressed. I mean, I realize it's an attempt to do that here, but a member failing without good cause to attend more than 3 consecutive monthly meetings. Well, if somebody was doing 2 and then skip 1 and skip another, I mean, then they're not following that, correct?
make one, skip 2, make one, skip 2. It's struggle at the time. It
Failing
was
to
hard to get
attend
it
more
for
than 3
the
consecutive.
problem was.
But
with-
it's
we were
for
having
also in a
trouble.
12-month period.
4 in a 12-month period.
Yeah.
To Jeff's point though, when we ask them to serve, we're asking them to make a 3-year commitment, kind of an enlistment. If you will.
Correct.
Instead of, well, we'll go from 1 year to the next, which is kind of tenuous.
Right.
Perspective. Of it. But
I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference one way or the other.
I don't either.
Kind of doing
It's-
the same
I mean,
thing.
they're-
I like the 3-year
But if we have,
commitment versus.
we can have some more in there where they're not participating.
Well, it does say 4 monthly meetings in a 12-month period.
So we'll go with the 3-year terms. Okay. We will bring it back the next board meeting also with amendments to the UDO. Like I say, we'll try to, I think it'd be best just to remove that. That way, if we change it in the future,
It's a
just be
policy
on the
rather than-
policy and not have to go through a public hearing and everything.
Can I ask Bob, with your experience with working with other towns and counties and everything, what's your feeling about the 1-year appointment as opposed to the 3-year? Are you familiar with any other municipalities that have a 1 year versus 2 or 3 or 4?
So, Mayor, I wouldn't propose to speak for all the different jurisdictions around the state. Obviously, I've not studied it or compiled and analyzed it, but in my experience, 3 years seems to be the default. I don't know that I've ever run across a 1-year term for members of planning board or zoning board. I mean, certainly you can, but my experience is 3-year staggered is sort of the default. The staggering gives you some carryover institutional knowledge and experience when new members come on. But again, the law does not drive that decision.
Okay. Very good.
with that thought in mind, I think we ought to institute a staggering of the current members.
And the zoning board already has staggering as well, built into theirs. It would just be figuring that out for the planning board.
I think Josh and Michael could probably
Yeah.
do that. Given on tenure, how long they've been there, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
You know, new ones get the 3-year term and the older ones get and they can always be reinstated.
If y'all can research that, bring it back to the board.
Absolutely.
We have to do
Yes.
for this because it does mention section 3.4.2, which right now the zoning board has two consecutive terms.
Is your mic on?
I think that's right.
2 consecutive terms, yes, that is correct. And then they have to be off.
So this would change it to where they could have consecutive,
Yes.
unlimited consecutive. terms.
Yeah, we would have to amend the UDO, and I think the best thing would be talking with Bob and see if we can just pull that out of the UDO and make it a policy solely. That way we
I
don't
think
have
that
to
would be the best thing. if possible.
amendment.
That way it's much easier to change if we have problems.
And I think if you've got good members on there, don't limit them to two terms, because the zoning board is so important. Once
Yeah.
they get the training, if they're willing to serve.
I
think they
remember
need to stay
a
on
few
there as
years
long as
ago,
possible.
we had that problem, and a very good member had to rotate off, and we didn't really have anyone coming up to replace him, so I think that's good. Okay. That will be brought back to the board at our April meeting for formal consideration.
It'll be brought back with the UDO amendments as well to set the public.
All right, very good.
So the next one, oh, sorry, Mayor, if you want.
Well, go ahead. The next item we'll cover will be weekend construction and work regulations, and I want to emphasize a couple of things. One, we're not creating a new ordinance. We are simply trying to clarify and refine what's already on the books. And I know there might be some folks who are in the landscaping business and things like that that are not here tonight. But again, we're not going to take action. We're just, again, discussing this, and that formal decision will be made at a later date. So go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Article 2 noise ordinance, the amendments, if you'll remember from last meeting, there's been some changes even to those. So that section 8.16 exemptions, item 10 would be the homeowner's use of non-commercial lawnmowers, agricultural equipment, and landscape maintenance equipment operated during working hours and non-holiday Saturdays between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. and non-holiday Sundays between 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. Of course, those times are subject to change depending on what y'all would like to see, and only if operated in accordance with manufacturer specifications and all that original verbiage in there. Also, item 16, which is for our trash collection. As you know, they collect on the weekends, and that actually hasn't been in there as an exemption before because it was operated during working hours, which are Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 6, I believe, are the working hours, Monday through Friday. So I believe switching that to daytime hours would capture their work that they do on the weekends, and of course exempt them from the noise ordinance. And then the other added one, 17. This is something common that we've seen in other noise ordinances. I gave an example in this, of course, from Hilton Head, which are the sounds produced by golf course maintenance and watering equipment. Those are the changes that we have done so far. Tell me what y'all think, or if there's any other items you'd like to see amended in there. Or even added, we could add, certain items while we're talking about it.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll go for it. I mean, personally, I don't have an issue with, I think there's some good reasons, but I don't have an issue with commercial work on Saturdays. Sundays, yes. Saturdays, though, for maintenance, yeah. So I think that's something we need to consider opening up.
And going back to using Hilton Head as an example, used for number 17. But for number 10, I also like what they say on theirs. Non-commercial persons and machinery engaged in landscape maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. Grinding or chipping of tree trunks or branches by the owner. and sound produced by commercial persons and machinery engaged in landscape maintenance, cleanup. I'm not necessarily gonna throw grinding and chipping of tree trunks, because that's a very loud operation.
Yeah.
But that's typically not something that's done
No, no,
like the whole day, you know? I mean,
right. No,
I have a grinder, a chipper.
Yeah, but it has to be, you're allowed to use it. But it's also, as long as it's done on the property that something's being taken from, they can't bring stuff from another place and spend all afternoon chipping it up in their backyard. It has to be from that property. So I don't have, personally, I don't have an issue with adding that kind of verbiage that's in number 6 on Hilton Head's to ours. Because I mean, we do get a heck of a lot of rain. I mean, everybody, you get 3 or 4 days of rain and you can't do 3/4 of these tasks. I mean, when do they get it done? I mean,
It is hard to say too, from the town's perspective. I mean, we're running a street sweeper on Saturday mornings.
Okay,
really early, by the way.
Yeah.
Commissioner Steele, I'm not surprised that you would want, commercial activity on
Mhm.
Saturday. I can see that, but my question is this: would you be willing to hold to a time limit from like 9 to 4? Because,
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
yeah, people want
Absolutely.
to get up and have their coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I would have no issue with that at all.
And what's on number 10? How do you clarify non-commercial lawnmower equipment?
It's the usage, is it
Yeah,
not?
Yeah.
Paying somebody to do it.
Yeah.
versus-
Basically,
Well,
that would be the
Yeah,
distinction.
and I'll also use the example, like you're asking too, I think it's if the owner of the property is using their weed eater, they can do it on a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
But the other side of things, I'm just gonna use them as an example, but a lot of our town employees and other employees that have other full-time jobs during the season, in order to make everything work, they do people's lawns, they blow leaves, they do all these things. And and they're getting paid, even if they're using that person's lawnmower, that they wouldn't be able to do that. A high school kid doing lawns on a Saturday, not allowed to do it because they're being paid. It's by the current definition. I mean, but if you have somebody complain about it,
Yeah, no, I have always said, I think because of our climate here and the amount of rain that we
Mhm.
get.
Yeah.
I understand people want to come up from a noisy city and come up here and have it nice and quiet, but we're a town too, and we have to get along with what we have. And sometimes that means that you have to do work on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And I would, if I had my druthers, the only thing that I would ban is leaf blowers. Because there's that constant monotonous sound that goes on forever and ever and everywhere. Whereas, a lawnmower has a change in pitch and, as you go
Yeah.
uphill and downhill and the thickness and everything, but
Yeah.
leaf blowers don't. But I've always thought that even construction, if you can do construction and not be you occasionally use a chop saw and it sounds for, 30 seconds to chop something.
from 9 to 4.
Yeah,
from
but
9
and
to
that's
4.
yeah, that's my point too, is sometimes by not having being able to work on Saturdays, it can drag projects out longer
Yeah,
than
and
it.
not only is it for the workers, but the
Yeah.
person who wants that project done
Yeah.
keeps getting put off.
Yeah.
My house never gets built because
Yeah.
it rains all week and they can only work on Saturday and Sunday, but we won't let them.
Now, I will say I'm 100% good with completely banning all of this on a Sunday. I think we need to have one day
I
of,
agree.
whether or not, a day. I think that Sunday is you're quiet. That's just my own feeling. Commercial.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that a lot of people like to get their project done too.
I'll vouch for that, but
And want to know why it's taken so long? It's because it rained for 3 of the 4
Yeah.
days.
And to answer your question, if somebody brings a lawnmower or equipment on a
Yeah, no,
trailer,
that's fine.
that's
That's-
commercial.
That's fine.
If it's coming out of their shed in
Yeah.
the back of the
well,
house.
unless they're paying somebody to do it, then by definition,
Yeah.
that's not allowed either.
Yeah.
If you have a neighbor complain, they have to shut it down.
Yeah.
In the current UDO.
Everybody like on
Well, this is-
Saturdays, going back to the
code,
work,
that's
it's
not UDO.
it's always,
No,
if
code,
the
yeah, the
neighbors are
ordinances.
doing it, you don't want the noise, but if it's their project, of course, they want to be able to work on Saturdays.
Well, and it used to be more of a problem because nowadays everybody has air conditioning. Used to be, we all opened our windows in the summertime.
So what I'm hearing is that we would permit commercial activities, landscaping and everything on Saturday within that time frame, 9 to 4.
Which is what was proposed
Yeah.
prior anyway, for that work time hours.
And we've always had like contractors, building houses. If they've got nail guns and hammers on Sunday and framing a house where it makes a noise, that's one thing, but like if they drive in a house and they're doing electrical work, or like you say, running a chop saw or some framing just periodically, that's not really, I don't think it's gonna be a problem.
And as it's written right now, they could operate, unless I'm mistaken, there's nowhere specifically in this ordinance that this allows construction work on the weekends. It's just the exemption is construction work Monday through Friday, 6 to 7:30, meaning they can get, or 7:30 to 6, meaning they get out there and cut and make all the noise they want. As long as they're underneath the noise ordinance on a weekend, wiring, painting, something like that. As far as my understanding of the ordinance is, they could do that, as long as they're not being a nuisance.
Okay.
So are we saying that to cut through all the weeds here, are we, no pun intended, are we saying that we have unlimited yard work of any sort, 9 to 4, Monday through Saturday?
No,
The hours change on Saturday. It's less of a period.
Yeah.
Starts later, finishes earlier.
on weekdays, they can
But
go
that's
what?
commercial, or that's
So-
everybody?
Everybody.
Monday through
It's 8
Friday.
to
would be-
6.
Well,
isn't it?
everybody
7:30 to
commercial,
6.
really.
7:30.
Well, we keep going back and forth about this commercial and homeowner and, I don't really understand the difference. To me, every piece of equipment I've got is the commercial stuff, the backpack leaf blowers, the big long weed eaters.
Are you bragging or what's?
Yes, yes and no. I mean, a lot of people have this sort of thing,
Yeah.
they don't have the little electric plug-in kind of things, which make a hell of a lot of noise. So I think we're getting sidetracked here by commercial. Yeah, is it commercial
I don't
person
think
or is
so.
it commercial equipment?
I don't think so. I disagree with you. If you are running a leaf blower, you can't be running a lawnmower. But a commercial landscaper can bring in an entire crew running a lawnmower, 3
And they're
leaf
done-
blowers,
And they're done in an hour where a homeowner takes all day.
sometimes
Go
an
ahead.
hour,
Go
sometimes
ahead.
an hour, sometimes an hour, but sometimes all afternoon. So
Yeah, I still think commercial, non-commercial goes back to the act. I don't think it's the equipment piece itself. I think it's the act of who's using it. And it becomes commercial as soon as somebody's being paid to do that. It could be your leaf blower, and if you're running it on your property, it's non-commercial. But if you hire John from down the road, it's commercial.
But you could also though rent a chipper at McNeely's and chip brush all day too.
You could, even though it's a commercial piece of equipment. Technically.
Does our town attorney think that might be restraint of trade?
No.
Okay,
Well, let me clarify. Illegal restraint of trade, no.
but Sundays, the homeowner can still do their own thing.
Correct.
So unlimited for homeowners, essentially, within reason,
Mhm.
within hours.
Yeah.
Okay. I still haven't got the definition of commercial in my head.
Exchange of money.
How in
So-
the world are we gonna enforce?
Well, that's the
Exchange of
whole
money.
point though. That's the point though.
I mean, Leah's not gonna. They call me back when you guys get done.
Well, that's the point. So we're
It's
doing away
commercial
with that.
property.
I mean, she deals with that now.
So it's a non-enforceable
Yeah.
scenario.
Well, no, not if landscape company shows up in their truck and starts blowing leaves on a Saturday currently, they can shut them down if the neighbor complains. Currently.
Yeah.
And it could be at 1 PM on a Saturday and it's according to our.
So what if, what if the landscaper shows up with their truck on Saturday and all the leaf blowers are electrically powered?
They
I
could
don't
do
mind
that.
if they're gas on a Saturday from 9 to 4.
Well, it's 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
In July,
Well, depends on,
when it cools off.
So
Yeah.
my interpretation would be if they stay below that noise decibel limit and not being a nuisance, they could operate like that. But if they go above that decibel limit and we don't change something to address that, then the police would have the right to shut them down.
I haven't changed how I feel about it. I think
Yeah.
that 9 to 4 on a Saturday, commercial and
have an issue
non-commercial,
with it.
beyond that, and on Sunday, nothing commercial, period. So, I mean, Sunday should be done, like, nothing.
And no rule's perfect. I mean, if someone hires a kid out of high school and he drives up in his regular truck and starts blowing leaves, we're
I
probably not
understand
gonna catch him on a Saturday or Sunday unless,
No,
you know,
I
someone
agree.
calls in and we're able to prove that it was a transaction. They don't just say, oh, that's my nephew, he lives here blowing my leaves.
I blow leaves, run a chainsaw and a weed eater on Saturdays and Sundays only. It's the only days I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to do
right.
it.
Yeah.
All
I
at the
mean,
same time.
Yeah, not quite at the same time, but I'll do it all day. So,
It's one of those no-win situations. You
Well,
can't
yeah,
figure
yeah.
every scenario.
Well, exactly. You gotta look, you gotta be worst case scenario situation. But somebody's gonna find a loophole somewhere.
Okay,
So just to clarify, and I'll make these edits. Do we need to bring this back to a workshop or make the edits and bring this to a town board meeting?
we've looked at this how many
I'll
times
count for
in
it.
workshops.
So I'll make the edits, and we're good for adding the commercial activity on Saturday, 9 AM to 4 PM. And leave the non-commercial the way it is, but no commercial on Sunday. Am I missing anything on
that sounds good to me. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing in that Hilton Head piece.
Mhm.
It helps us give a point of comparison. with,
that? Yeah, I
you know,
tried to
other
get a few
similar
others,
towns.
but time restraints. So. That is all I have, unless y'all have got anything else on either one of those. I believe we've probably got about 20 minutes to spare.
I concur with that assessment. Kind of unusual.
No, it'll give us time to change the batteries in all your microphones, because I'd
Yeah.
say they're on the brink of
Okay.
going out.
Do we have any more discussion with, or questions about these two issues? Okay, if not, I'll entertain that we have a motion to adjourn the work session.
So moved.
Second,
I think
all in favor? We are adjourned and we will resume at the business meeting at 7 o'clock.
There's all
Thank you,
this time to
Michael.
go get an ice cream.